Yoga can help on so many levels. I mean, from the beginning, yoga is a very holistic system. So it views the human being on all levels, right? So it's not separating the mind, the emotion, and the body. It's like seeing it as it's a complete in connection.
Yeah.
And in a way, I feel this is the way we need to work with trauma treatment. And this is where science is going as well, that we need to implement all aspects to actually see rehabilitative results, right? And sometimes it's being separated, like in the psychiatry, there you go with your emotion and your mind, but you kind of forget about the body. And also when we work with yoga, we also need to remember the importance of other treatment modalities.
Yep.
Because it's so complex.
Yeah, I come back to a word we've already discussed a little bit, which is integration.
Exactly.
Yoga can be so useful in integrating disintegrated parts of ourselves. So sometimes, whether we're talking about PTSD or eating disorders or addiction, we have these parts of ourselves that sort of in internal family systems, it's all of these parts of ourselves that sort of rule independently. But I think more practically coming back to that integration of body and mind, I know for eating disorders, there's a real practical aspect to how yoga can help. So a lot of what I hear from my students early in recovery is, wow, I haven't felt hunger in 3, 4, 5 years. So it's really a practical reconnecting with the body. I haven't felt fullness, being able to name when they're feeling anxious, when they're feeling tired, rather than what often happens, which is, engaging in those behaviors to self-soothe that sometimes aren't, good in the long run.
We have a very similar experience with the interoceptive awareness. That now you start to sense your reactions in a different way, right? You start to feel when you're becoming angry. You feel when you're becoming anxious. And then you have the tools to self-regulate, and that can make the entire difference. But we are also very cautious of, keeping both feet on the ground when talking about trauma and yoga and healing. And because, you need to do the yoga practice. For it to work.
Yeah.
And you actually need to as well to go to a yoga practice, to be inspired, right? So in a world where we are looking for quick fixes, this is something you need to integrate into your everyday life, and you need some discipline to actually do that as well. But what we see is that bringing all the different aspects from classical yoga in a way, like Patanjali's 8 limbs, it's really a good example of a wholeness around trauma treatment. You integrate the body, the mind, also ethical aspects and self-care and all of those limbs. If you combine all of those, you can have like a multi-dimensional effect, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I want to go back to something you said too, Josefin, about, for it to work, you have to practice, and to practice, you have to have a reason to come to the yoga practice. Exactly. And outside of the aspects of yoga that we all know so well, so the physical poses, the breathing practices, the meditative aspects, there's another thing in yoga that helps, which is, and it's simple, but it's powerful, it's community.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's coming not just to do a physical practice, but to connect with other human beings, to breathe in sync with other human beings. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful.
Super powerful.
Especially, I think, isolation is a common thread in all of the different populations we work with. Isolation, loneliness, and all of the emotional difficulties that can come along with that. So sometimes where yoga helps, it's not even just the yoga, it's the being in a group with others.
And human beings have done that, right? Throughout thousands of years, we connect and we move rhythmically together. We share an experience without necessarily have to put the words on it all the time.
Yep.
And that's how I feel, the relational aspects of this is really important in our projects, that we are coming there and we are on the same level. We're doing the practice together, we're breathing, and we are also, in those challenging poses. And so it's like a sense of community as well for us who are facilitating these classes. And it's so important for us as well to be regular and, turning up and be that kind of reliable to create that reliable relationship. But that's a huge aspect of it. And sometimes I feel especially in the psychiatry right now, people are a little bit afraid of implementing yoga because it's a lot of talk about the healing powers of yoga, and some psychiatric units in Europe, they are afraid of that they're going to bring in yoga as the only treatment modality. It's going to be, we're going to use this as a treatment, but now what we need to see is that integration. Yeah. How can we all collaborate, and especially with psychiatric mental health institutions and populations, that how can we help each other to bring that kind of holistic way of seeing the human being?
Yeah, this comes up a lot in eating disorders. We don't even really have I suppose we could say, yoga is the only way, but with the issues that come along with eating disorders is often cardiovascular issues, severe mental health issues. We have to work in tandem with the medical system. And when I'm talking to psychiatrists and therapists and residential eating disorder units, often what I say is, a yoga program might be, and this is such an American analogy, sorry, but like Miracle Grow on treatment. So if you just put Miracle Grow out there, without any soil, it's not going to do anything. Exactly, yeah. But if you've got soil and you've got a plant that's growing really, really slowly, may not speed it up, but it is going to help that. It's going to help that soil provide all the more nourishment. So what that looks like practically is clients being more engaged in therapy, being able to internalize and somatically integrate some of the insights they get from the more cognitive approaches, being more open with other people, and sometimes, a sense of real initiative in recovery. So really going less of like a treatment ambivalence and more this is my recovery, this is my body, this is my mind, and I want to take a step forward.
Yeah, and we have a unique possibility to bring a bottom-up approach, right? To complement the top-down treatment modalities. So, we have seen in Sweden, we've done the largest randomized research study in the world on the effects of mental health from regular yoga program. And we saw after 10 weeks a real significant reduction of anxiety, self-harming behaviors, OCD, also an improvement in maturity and character, and also reduced antisocial behaviors. Yep. And we saw also on a computerized test impulsivity reduction, so better control over their impulses. And it's only 10 weeks, one time a week. And this was compared to a control group who did other physical exercise, which is recommended for mental health, but we saw a significant difference. Yeah. And we know that it works.
Yeah. It's interesting because physical exercise, of course, will have benefits in and of itself.
Of course, and combine.
Exactly.
We don't have to exclude anything.
Yeah. We just finished up a randomized control trial at Eat, Breathe, Thrive looking at yoga in eating disorder recovery. And what was interesting to me is that we found similar results where you see reductions in PTSD symptoms, you see reductions in anxiety and depression, but we also saw improvements in what the researchers call protective factors. So these are those traits that you're talking about of resilience, of what they call positive emotional coping. Exactly. So some of the things that lead not just to recovery or rehabilitation, but a happy, a healthy, and a thriving life.
And we saw exactly the same. Increased positive emotion, and increased also inspiration and connection with the surroundings. So we have the similar results. So if you're into it, it works.
That's the TLDR, yoga works.
Thank you.